In today's video, we reveal the tragic stories of the top male and female bodybuilders who paid the ultimate price for greatness. Stay tuned, because you're about to witness the true cost of extreme bodybuilding, where the dream of building the perfect body came with overwhelming drug use.
I've seen people that have had severe infections where they've lost arms. We've seen deaths from these products.
Brutal dehydration, failing hearts, and irreversible price their bodies could not survive. Number 15. Mike Matarazzo. Mike Matarazzo, heavily built for impact with giant arms, huge calves, and a loud Boston attitude that fans never forgot. He started off as a boxer.
I'm getting older, and I don't want to literally pass away or end up on a machine at a certain age.
Then he moved to Venice, California, threw himself into the sport, and shocked everyone in 1991. In only his second bodybuilding contest, he won the NPC USA Championships, beating future stars like Flex Wheeler, Ronnie Coleman, and Chris Cormier. That win made him an IFBB pro and turned him into one of the most exciting new names of the decade.
Say bodybuilding championship, and I would say the name Mike Matarazzo. He comes home with the overall. Surprise, surprise. Terrific. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
He competed at Mr. Olympia 7 times, with his best placing coming in 1998. But his real impact came after the stage, when he became one of the few pros willing to speak openly about the damage behind the look. Mike said his heart problems began when he got serious about competitive bodybuilding. He talked about eating huge amounts of red meat, skipping fruits and vegetables, and using the chemicals needed to get massive. He believed steroids and the constant chase for size helped destroy his heart. His last pro show was the Mr. Olympia in 2001. In December 2004, he needed an open-heart surgery for blocked arteries. In November 2007, he suffered another heart attack. His heart function later dropped to around 20 to 25%, and he lived knowing he would likely need a transplant. On August 16, 2014, Mike Matarazzo died while waiting for a new heart. He was 48 years old. Number 14. Steve Michalik. Steve Michalik was one of the wildest names from the old school. He was not just chasing titles. He built a thick, hard physique and trained like every workout had to hurt more than the last. In 1971, he won Mr. USA. In 1972, he won Mr. America. In 1975, he won Mr. Universe. For a short time, he looked like one of the toughest men in bodybuilding. But Steve's rise had a dark secret. Around the same time he was winning Mr. America, he publicly claimed he had never used steroids and even warned that drugs were ruining bodybuilding. Later, he admitted that it was a lie. He had been using them while telling the public the opposite. The drug abuse became extreme. Steve later described taking huge amounts of steroids, and later accounts tied his name to drugs like Anadrol and Dianabol. He kept pushing harder, even after a terrible car crash nearly destroyed his body after his Mr. Universe win. Instead of walking away, he tried to force a comeback with more drugs, more pain, and more punishment. His body started breaking down. Reports said he suffered bleeding from his gums, kidneys, colon, and sinuses. He later dealt with a heart attack, a stroke, severe hormone damage, liver problems, and kidney disease. In 2011, he needed a kidney transplant through a hospital exchange program in New York. Steve eventually became one of bodybuilding's loudest warnings against steroid abuse. But by then, the damage had already followed him for decades. In May 2012, Steve Michalik died at 63 from a self-inflicted gunshot wound after years of poor health. Number 13. Anthony D'Arezzo. Anthony D'Arezzo carried the thick chest, dense arms, and raw power of a serious powerlifter, not just a bodybuilder posing under stage lights. Before bodybuilding took over, he had been a strong wrestler. He later studied health science at Boston University, worked as an exercise physiologist, and trained clients at Gold's Gym in Rhode Island. He knew the body better than most men chasing size. That made what happened later even harder to ignore. In 1992, he bench pressed 570 pounds, setting a Rhode Island record. In bodybuilding, he kept pushing toward the national level. He placed 7th in the heavyweight class at the 1993 NPC Nationals, then 9th in 1994 and 1995. In 1997, he won the NPC New England Championships overall. By 1998, he had also won Mr. Rhode Island and the NPC Greater Providence title, but his body was already in danger. Doctors diagnosed him with cardiomyopathy and warned him that bodybuilding, steroid use, and growth hormone could kill him. Anthony did not stop. He kept training and was still preparing for another contest in his 40s. In July 2006, he arrived in Pittsburgh for the NPC Teen, Collegiate, and Masters National Bodybuilding Championships. On July 21st, he collapsed inside his room at the Sheraton at Station Square. He was taken to Mercy Hospital, but he died that day. He was 44 years old. The autopsy said he died from hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, an enlarged heart. The medical examiner said his heart weighed about 3 times the normal weight of roughly 300 grams. Number 12, Mike Mentzer. Mike Mentzer was one of the smartest and most intense bodybuilders of the golden era. He had thick muscles, sharp conditioning, and a look that made him stand out fast. But his biggest weapon was not just his physique, it was the way he challenged the whole sport. Born in Pennsylvania on November 15, 1951, Mike built his name through the 1970s. He won Mr. America in 1976. Then, in 1978, he won the IFBB Mr. Universe with a perfect score of 300, the first bodybuilder ever to do it. In 1979, he turned pro, won the heavyweight class at Mr. Olympia, and lost the overall title to Frank Zane. Mike became famous for heavy-duty training. While others trained for hours, he pushed short, brutal workouts, heavy effort, and more recovery. Years later, Dorian Yates credited Mike's ideas as a major influence on his own training, but his life also carried a darker side. Mike competed in an era where steroid use was common at the top, and he was not a natural athlete during that period. He also later admitted he began using amphetamines in 1979 to stay productive, and that addiction helped damage his life after competition. Then came the 1980 Mr. Olympia. Arnold Schwarzenegger returned and won in one of the most controversial results in bodybuilding history. Mike was furious, felt cheated, and soon walked away from the stage. He later rebuilt his name through writing, coaching, and heavy-duty training. But on June 10, 2001, Mike Mentzer died in California from heart complications. He was 49 years old. Number 11. Don Youngblood. Don Youngblood came into bodybuilding late, then turned himself into one of the most powerful men the Masters Olympia stage had ever seen. At 5 feet 9 inches, he competed around 245 pounds and climbed close to 295 pounds in the off-season. He had the thick, heavy look of a man built for mass, not just shape. He started serious bodybuilding in 1987 and rose fast. In 1994, he won the NPC Arkansas State Masters. In 1995, he won the Arkansas overall state title, then took the NPC Masters Nationals overall. That run pushed him into the pro ranks and put him on the road to the Masters Olympia. Don's biggest moment came against Vince Taylor, the man who had ruled that stage for years. In 2001, Don finished second to him at the Masters Olympia. 1 year later, he came back heavier, sharper, and more dangerous, then beat Taylor to win the 2002 Masters Olympia. That same year, he also stepped onto the Mr. Olympia stage, turning a late start into the biggest achievement of his career. But Don kept carrying a massive body at an age when that kind of size came with real strain. Bodybuilding in the early 2000s was built around more mass, harder conditioning, and brutal prep. Don stayed in that world deep into his 40s and early 50s, still chasing the look that had made him a champion. On May 8, 2005, Don Youngblood died at his home in Alma, Arkansas from a massive heart attack. He was 51 years old. Number 10. Andreas Munzer. Andreas Munzer walked on stage looking impossibly dry. His skin was so thin that every vein, cut, and muscle line stood out. In the 1990s, when bodybuilding was already full of huge men, Andreas became famous for looking stripped down to pure muscle. Born in Austria on October 25, 1964, Andreas rose fast through the late 1980s. He won the heavyweight class at the 1989 World Games, placed third at the 1990 Arnold Classic, and competed several times at Mr. Olympia. His whole name became tied to extreme conditioning. Fans admired the look, but that look came with a brutal cost. Andreas was linked to heavy anabolic steroid use and strong potassium-sparing diuretics, drugs bodybuilders used to pull water out of the body and look sharper before a show. He kept chasing that dry, carved look until his body started breaking down. After months of stomach pain, he was admitted to a hospital in Munich on March 12, 1996. Doctors found serious internal bleeding and rushed him into surgery. Soon after, his liver and kidneys failed. On March 14, 1996, Andreas Munzer died at just 31 years old. The autopsy listed dystrophic multiple organ failure. Reports later described severe internal damage, including a badly enlarged heart, major liver damage, shriveled testicles, dangerously high potassium, and traces of about 20 different drugs in his system. Number 9. Joanna Thomas. Joanna Thomas became one of Britain's most talked-about female bodybuilders because her physique was wild. Thick arms, full shoulders, a small waist, and a level of muscle that made her stand out fast. She started training as a teenager after struggling with asthma as a child, then pushed herself deep into women's bodybuilding while most people her age were still figuring out their lives. By 1998, Joanna had won the EFBB British Championships overall. At just 21, she became the youngest British female bodybuilder to earn an IFBB Pro card. That made her one of the biggest female bodybuilding prospects in the country. In 2001, she won the lightweight class at the John Tana Classic in her pro debut, which qualified her for Miss Olympia. She later placed second at the 2004 GNC Show of Strength and 7th at the 2004 Miss Olympia. But the same sport that made her famous also pulled her into a dangerous world. Joanna used steroids while climbing through bodybuilding, and later reports pointed to anabolic steroids, illegal drugs, and prescribed medication. After a car crash left her in pain, strong painkillers also became part of her life. The pressure to keep an extreme body, the drugs used to build it, and the medication used to cope with the damage all started closing in. Joanna's last pro contest was the 2007 Atlantic City Pro, where she placed 4th in the lightweight class. Years later, in April 2020, she was found dead in her flat in Camborne, Cornwall during a welfare check. She was 43. After her death, her mother found a note saying that if Joanna was found dead, it would have been an accident. Her cause of death was listed as multiple drug toxicity. Number 8. Art Atwood. Art Atwood had a massive chest, thick legs, and a heavy, overpowering build that fit the early 2000s, when bodybuilding kept chasing more mass and more shock. Born in Wisconsin on December 27, 1973, Art rose fast once he hit the national stage. In 2000, he won the super heavyweight class at the NPC Junior USA. In 2001, he won the super heavyweight class at the NPC Nationals and moved into the pro ranks. The next year, he won the Toronto Pro, qualified for Mr. Olympia, and stood among the biggest names in the sport. He competed at Mr. Olympia in 2002 and 2003, becoming one of the most talked about giant physiques of that era. But Art's story also ran straight into bodybuilding's drug world. In 2007, police and federal prosecutors tied him to illegal steroid sales. Reports said investigators watched him gather steroids, human growth hormone, ecstasy, and thyroid stimulators before a deal connected him to Operation Raw Deal, the federal crackdown on illegal performance drugs. On September 11, 2011, Art suffered a massive heart attack at the pool area of his condominium complex in Dallas. 2 residents pulled him from the water and tried to save him before paramedics arrived. He was taken to Baylor Regional Medical Center in Plano, but he died there at 37. After his death, the coroner's report revealed he had unknowingly suffered a minor heart attack about a month earlier. Number 7. George Peterson. George Peterson was called Da Bull for a reason. He had thick arms, dense muscle, a packed chest, and a frame that looked powerful from every angle. He first made his name in classic physique, where he mixed old-school shape with the kind of size that made him look dangerous beside anyone. Then he moved into the 212 division and proved he could still compete with the best. George turned pro in 2016 after winning the first NPC Nationals Classic Physique title. 1 year later, he won the Tampa Pro and placed 3rd at the Classic Physique Olympia. He placed 3rd at the Olympia again in 2018 and 2019, then won the Arnold Classic Physique in 2019. After moving to the 212 class, he won the Tampa Pro again in 2020 and placed 3rd at the Olympia that same year. By October 2021, George was in Orlando for Olympia weekend. He was still active, still dangerous, and still chasing a bigger finish. But on October 6th, before he ever got back on stage, he was found dead in his hotel room. He was 37 years old. After his death, the findings made the story even darker. The autopsy said he died from a sudden heart rhythm problem caused by heart disease linked to high blood pressure. It also said anabolic steroid use played a role. Tests found boldenone and stanozolol in his body. Reports also said police found many unlabeled pills in his room, along with clenbuterol and thyroid medicine. Number 6. Daniele Seccarecci. Daniele Seccarecci was one of the biggest competitive bodybuilders ever recorded. At his peak, Guinness World Records recognized him as the heaviest competitive male bodybuilder, with a contest weight of about 298 pounds. Even beside other pros, his size stood out. He was born in Livorno, Italy, on June 10, 1980, and started building his name while he was still young. He did well in junior contests, kept climbing, and turned pro at 26. In 2006, he came close to qualifying for Mr. Olympia after a strong run at the Spanish Grand Prix. But Daniele's story also carried a darker side. In 2011, he was arrested in Italy on charges tied to illegal steroid marketing. He was later placed under home detention for a time because of health concerns. On September 1, 2013, Daniele competed at the IFBB Nordic Pro in Lahti, Finland, and placed 6th. 4 days later, he was dead in Toronto. He was only 33 years old. Public reports described a heart attack, and some early reports said he may have collapsed and hit his head as he fell. Number 5. Mohammed Benaziza. Mohammed Benaziza was shorter than many of the men he faced, but his physique made that almost irrelevant. He was dense, sharp, balanced, and packed with muscle from top to bottom. In an era full of giants, he became dangerous because he could stand beside bigger men and still beat them. When Benaziza entered the world of bodybuilding, he rose fast. He won his first contest in Spain in the under 75 kilogram class, then pushed through the amateur ranks into the pro scene. His biggest breakthrough came at the 1990 Night of Champions, where he beat Dorian Yates. Joe Weider later gave him the nickname the Killer of Giants, and it fit. He placed 5th at Mr. Olympia, won several Grand Prix shows, and took 2nd at the 1992 Arnold Classic. Dorian Yates later said Benaziza's back development pushed him to improve his own. But Mohammed was also chasing the ultra-dry look that came with serious danger. His final prep involved heavy drug use, including diuretics used to drain water from the body before a show. After placing 5th at the 1992 Mr. Olympia, he kept going and won the Dutch Grand Prix soon after. By then, his body was already in trouble. He had complained of feeling sick and short of breath, but the damage was moving faster than anyone realized. On October 4, 1992, just hours after competing, Mohammed Benaziza was found dead in his hotel room in the Netherlands. He was only 33 years old. Later reports tied his death to severe dehydration caused by diuretics. Number 4. Greg Kovacs. Greg Kovacs was one of the biggest bodybuilders the sport had ever seen. Around 6'4", often over 400 pounds in the off-season, and still around 330 on stage, he looked like bodybuilding pushed to an extreme. In the late 1990s, when size was becoming everything, Greg became one of the clearest symbols of the mass monster era. Greg earned his IFBB Pro card by winning the Canadian Nationals in 1996. A year later, he landed on the cover of Flex magazine, which shows how much attention his size was getting. He competed at the Night of Champions and the Arnold Classic. His best pro finish came at the 2004 Arnold Classic, where he placed 13th. He had arms over 25 inches, thighs around 35 inches, and a body so large it seemed to test what bodybuilding could call possible. But that was also the warning. Carrying that much size put enormous strain on the body, and Greg kept chasing the standard that defined that era. He retired from competition in 2005 and later coached athletes. On November 22, 2013, Greg Kovacs died in Mississauga, Ontario from a heart attack. He was 44 years old. Number 3. Vince Comerford. Vince Comerford was a shorter bodybuilder, but he carried thick muscle and a tight, powerful look that made him dangerous against bigger men. He came up fast in the 1980s, winning the short class at the 1985 AAU Mr. USA, then taking the middleweight class at the 1987 NPC Nationals. That win put him behind only Sean Ray in the overall and pushed him into the pro ranks. Once he turned pro, Vince proved he was not just an amateur standout. In 1989, he placed 2nd at the Grand Prix US Pro and 3rd at the Night of Champions. In 1990, he placed 3rd at the Ironman Pro and 4th at the Houston Pro. He had the kind of compact, powerful physique judges could not ignore, but his career also ran straight into one of bodybuilding's messiest drug moments, the 1990. Mr. Olympia was drug tested, and Vince was one of the athletes disqualified after testing positive. Reports tied his result to elevated testosterone. Soon after, he joined Vince McMahon's World Bodybuilding Federation, the flashy rival league that tried to sell bodybuilding with bigger characters, bigger money, and claims of being drug-free, while the sport was still drowning in performance drugs. Vince later disappeared from the biggest stages, but the damage around his body did not disappear with him. On April 10, 2014, staff at Die Hard Gym in Peoria, Arizona found him unresponsive in the break room. CPR was attempted, but he could not be saved. He was 52 years old. Reports at the time said the cause was not yet known, but he had recently told Lonnie Tieper he was suffering from heart ailments. Number 2. Edward Kawak. Edward Kawak was one of the most dominant bodybuilders of the 1980s. He had the thick muscles, small waist, and full, powerful look that made him almost unbeatable on that stage. Born in Lebanon in 1959, he later moved to France and built his career there. Kawak started winning fast. In 1980, he won the WABA World Championships overall. In 1982, he won the NABA Pro Mr. Universe. Then he kept taking it again and again. He won the NABA Pro Universe in 1983, 1984, 1985, and 1993, giving him 5 universe titles in total. His physique had size, shape, and a polished look that made him stand out before the full mass monster era took over. After dominating NABA, Kawak moved into the IFBB and tested himself against the top pros. He competed at Mr. Olympia in 1986, 1987, and 1988, placing as high as 8th in 1987. He also competed in shows like the Night of Champions and the World Pro Championships. On May 21, 2006, Edward Kawak died in China from a heart attack. He was 47 years old. The exact deeper cause behind his heart attack has not been clearly proven in public reports, but his early death still fits the dark pattern that followed so many extreme bodybuilding physiques from that era. Number 1. Hans Hopstaken. Hans Hopstaken was one of the older competitors who refused to fade out quietly. He built a hard, seasoned physique and kept stepping on stage at an age when most bodybuilders had already left serious competition behind. His physique had dense muscle, sharp conditioning, and the look of a man still fighting the stage while his body was already breaking down. Hans made his name in the Masters division. He competed in NPC Masters shows in the late 1990s, then moved into IFBB contests in 2000 and 2001. His strongest results came at the Masters Olympia, where he earned top 5 finishes and proved he could still stand with some of the best older physiques in the sport. But the push came with damage. Hans became seriously ill. He was having breathing problems and had to go to the emergency room at Santa Teresita Hospital. Doctors diagnosed him with heart disease. His condition got worse from there. He developed pneumonia, and kidney problems also appeared near the end. On April 15, 2002, Hans Hopstaken died at 45 years old. Thanks for watching. Now check out the videos popping up on screen for more unbelievable stories.